truly incredible goal from David Clifford. Runs the full length, almost 70 yards in total, before putting the ball in the back of the net as Fossa booked their place into the Kerry Intermediate Football Championship semi-finals. An incredible piece of skill once again from David Clifford. And it just seems like every week we're talking about David Clifford, isn't it? Whether it's with Fossa, whether it's with East Kerry, whether it's with Kerry themselves, or whether it's, it's just absolutely remarkable. And David Clifford is becoming folklore in more ways than one when it comes to Gaelic football. And it's becoming that type thing where, it's almost like an occasion to go and see David Clifford play. We're also going to look at some scenes of, the fans almost trying to mob David Clifford at the full-time whistle. It's like an occasion seeing David Clifford for supporters, for younger fans and everything else. And he really well and truly is the biggest star in the GAA right now. And honestly, probably the biggest star I've ever seen in the GAA in terms of one individual player. It's remarkable. And what an incredible piece of skill it was. And look, people might look at it and say, oh, well, it's the Intermediate Football Championship, this or that. Kerry were playing junior football last year. They won the All-Ireland. And now they're into the semi-finals of the Intermediate Football Championship. This could be a real rags to riches story with David Clifford and Fossa. I mean, they could possibly win the Kerry Championship this year, possibly go on and maybe compete for another All-Ireland. And who knows where they might end up if they get into the Senior Championship next year. It's quite a remarkable story, really, looking at Fossa, looking at David Clifford. But when you have someone like David Clifford in your ranks, you're always going to have a great chance.
O'Shea goal, and that he took it down the field all the way. And that one proving to be the last kick of the game. And here we go, what we've seen so often before, David Clifford being rushed. I think we're going to send him Spotty off there. We might get him in for an interview after the game. But David Clifford being rushed there by local children and children around the country. Of course, one of these club games gets a tint of people travelling from around Ireland to see him. But first we've got David Clifford going over, shaking the hands.
I mean, it's absolutely crazy, isn't it? And we're seeing scenes like that up and down the country every time David Clifford plays, and whether it's for Fossa, East Kerry, or even at times when he's played for Kerry in the past as well. Like, absolutely incredible. And look, you can completely understand, obviously, all the fans and everything wanting a photo, a signature, or anything of any nature with David Clifford, because he is an absolute star and he is an icon of the game. And it's mad even like looking at that, like the amount of fans that are all just going towards him, you almost feel bad for the other players. Like, it's just everyone going towards one player. And you do wonder how David actually deals with that. I mean, he's probably getting quite used to it at this stage, but I'd imagine like if he goes to his local shops in Kerry, or he goes here, he goes there, he's probably don't get me wrong, I think a lot of Gaelic footballers probably do get stopped for photos, and a lot of the bigger ones definitely will. But I think someone like David Clifford, like, he is an absolute bona fide star, isn't he? Do you know what I mean? If he's the cover star in many ways, if there was one in the GAA. Yeah, like, you wonder how he deals with it personally, in terms of all that attention and everything else, especially when it is an amateur game after all. But to be fair, he looks like someone who's well equipped to deal with it. And to be fair to him, he has, he handles it very well. He stays back with fans, and it's great to see because, I think for someone who is such a bona fide star, it's great to see him have the humility to, take photos with fans, to sign the signatures and everything else, and spend that time with supporters, because I think, the last thing we would want is obviously for him not to do that. So fair play to him. He owes nothing to nobody as well. Remarkable scenes there from David Clifford. And obviously there was plenty of talking points up and down the country in club championships in the past week or so. And that is the topic of today's video. We're going to be looking at all the talking points, all the big moments across various club championships. We're going to try to do one of these once every week or so. We will be bringing back match reactions over the next couple of weeks in terms of, big club championship matches that are on TG Cahir or any that I've watched myself. Obviously, it's sort of, we're slowly getting into the nitty gritty of club championships. Obviously, the Kerry Intermediate Football Championship semi-final next weekend, Fossa and Austin Stacks. What an absolute cracker of a game that's going to be. The Kerry Club Football Championship final is coming as well. And even the Dublin Club Championship is very close now to going into the knockout stages. So things are going to start getting very, very interesting in the next couple of weeks. And it's going to be interesting to see. And we will be bringing back podcast form content as well. Nearly mixing my words there. when things start to get even more interesting further down the line. So there was certainly plenty of talking points, plenty of chatter around club championships. And let me know, for any of you lads who've been watching club championship games, let me know what have been some of your highlights and everything else, because certainly a lot to discuss. And obviously, as we were saying, David Clifford doing the business. And it's mad. Austin Stacks versus Fossa in the Intermediate Football Championship next week. The old against the new. Donaghy versus Clifford. I mean, it's like a Rocky film, that, isn't it? You know, it's incredible stuff. And that's going to be one cracking. Hopefully it's on somewhere. It's probably on Club or somewhere, or on somewhere. And yeah, I mean, who would have thought that the Intermediate Kerry Football Championship would probably have the biggest game so far, in my opinion. But look, the Kerry Club Football Championship, that's going to be an interesting one as well, in fairness.
And here they come now. This is O'Sullivan. O'Sullivan, a quick ball inside to Choo-Choo. And Choo-Choo rattles the net. What a goal!
Yeah, and it was a tremendous win for Kenmare Shamrocks. I've seen Sean O'Shea kicked 8 points, I think, in total. A remarkable performance from Kenmare Shamrocks, and from Sean O'Shea in particular. 114 to 12 points is what they beat Dr. Crow. Kenmare Shamrocks haven't won the Kerry Club Football Championship since 1983, and they're one win away from doing so. I've watched a couple of Kenmare Shamrocks games down the years. I mean, they've been on TG Cahar and been on a few other platforms here and there, and you know, when you look at some of the players that they have in terms of Stephen O'Brien, Sean O'Shea, Darragh O'Shea, like a lot of very, very good footballers. And obviously the Kerry Club Football Championship it's important, don't get me wrong. I don't know if it's important as the County Football Championship, but certainly the Club Football Championship is still very important, as we obviously saw with Kerrins O'Rahilly's winning that last year and going on to reach the All-Ireland semi-finals as well, obviously winning Munster. So for Kenmare, it would be huge for them to get over the line in Kerry. But they are playing a Dingle side who, let's not forget, were moments away from winning the County Football Championship last year. We all remember that point from Paul Murphy, which was nothing short of remarkable for East Kerry. And certainly going into the final, it's going to be interesting because Dingle have very much carried on the momentum that they had from last season. And that's going to be a very, very fascinating game. You're going to have Paul Gainey on one hand side, Sean O'Shea on the other. And yeah, the Kerry Club Football Championship final is going to be very, very interesting and very excited to see it.
Jonathan Glynn is a foreign Thompson. Chin has the shit of the numbers college or Henry Darren Morrissey. So no. So Lord Han, Rater, Lord, and the Moyer cool Hama. Nish. So on yeah,
absolutely horrendous, deplorable, despicable, sick, absolutely sick is what we just seen there in the Galway Club Hurling Championship. When I saw that, I honestly could not believe what I just saw. I honestly could not believe what I just witnessed. And to be honest with you, I nearly debated whether even to discuss this in the video, because it was like, it's so bad. It's honestly probably one of the worst things I think I've ever seen in the GAA. And that might sound a bit of a stretch, but look, obviously we've seen some very bad, you know, in my lifetime anyway. Obviously in other people's lifetime, maybe a little bit different, but in my lifetime, in terms of things I've witnessed on the TV or at games, I mean, look, we've all seen some fairly unpleasant scenes down the years. You think back to Meath and Louth in 2010, when obviously a lot of fans were chasing the ref off the pitch, and other things that have happened, fighting, you know, on the sidelines. We've had a lot of mad stuff happen at club championship games in the last, you know, year or so. People being assaulted, attacked, referees being attacked, all sorts of absolute chaos happening up and down the country. And I don't know, you know, I've obviously discussed this in previous videos, you know, in the past, and discussed some of the things that's happened, and you just wonder, what is going on here? You know, what is happening? How do these issues keep happening? How do these problems keep happening? And there does seem to be more and more of this in the GAA, in my opinion, and it's starting to get very, very worrying. It's deplorable, obviously, from Johnny Glynn. And look, from watching Johnny Glynn playing football with New York, playing hurling with Galway, you know, you never really thought you'd see something like this from him personally. You know, I never remember anything like this from him down the years. But But when you look at this, you just think it's actually quite hard to watch because he's clearly got him. You're watching mixed martial arts, you're watching UFC. This is a Gaelic, this is a hurling match. You know what I mean? This is an amateur sport. This is supposed to be fun entertainment, and he's got him in a choke. Clearly choking his neck, and you see the other player even tap. It's absolutely despicable, awful, absolutely awful. And the reason why I wanted to address this is because I haven't seen enough about this being spoken. Not enough people are speaking about this. Not enough people have been saying it on social media. And it's disappointing because, look, don't get me wrong. Look, Johnny Glynn has obviously made a massive mistake. And I think if you were to talk to him, he would openly say he's made a huge error and he should be punished. Absolutely rightly so. And I think he will be punished. But the problem is, we're seeing too much of this because for me, the punishments aren't just enough. We're seeing players being banned for 5 or 6 games here or there, but then they're back and then they can appeal and all this sorts of madness happening. And for me, there needs to be, the GA really need to put the stamp on this, because if they don't put the stamp on this soon, something really, really bad is going to happen. And I said this, I remember a year ago when referees were being assaulted. I said it, when the Armagh Galway situation happened. If the GA don't stamp down on this, it's going to get very, very bad, because something very, very bad is going to happen, and obviously none of us want that. None of us want to see that. And we're getting very, very close, in my opinion, to something very, very bad happening in a hurling match, in a Gaelic football match. For me, 10-game ban minimum, a year ban, I think should possibly be dished out for both club and county. I think they're also, as well, in my opinion, and I've said this before, is that you ban the player, absolutely, but there needs to be some sort of, rehabilitation. There needs to be accountability. There needs to be, people need to be owning up to their mistakes and saying, I made a very, very bad mistake there, because we seem to have this thing in the GAA where we'll see some of these instances and you'll get 2 different types of people. You have one crop of people who just jump on the bandwagon and obviously go after the player over and over and over and over again. I think a lot of people thrive off this cancel sort of culture that we have. And look, don't get me wrong, there should be a clear punishment here. But I think it's, for me, it's more so, it's nothing against the player, Johnny Glynn. Look, I think he's made an awful, awful mistake. And I think him himself would know more than anyone that he's made an awful mistake. But for me, the GA just needs to clamp this out, because if they don't clamp it out soon and they don't start, dishing out severe bans, I think it could happen again. And I think a year ban, possibly more. And you might say, oh, well, what good is that going to do to the player or whatever, to just stop him playing? But there needs to be consequences for your actions. I mean, if this was done in the street, if this was done in normal day-to-day life, if this was done in the workplace, obviously this is an amateur sport, but imagine if this was done in the workplace, you would be, that's jail time. So I think, a lot needs to be done about this, in my opinion, and just absolutely horrendous. And when I saw this on Sunday, I wasn't watching the game, so I seen it pop up on Twitter, and I was like, oh, just not good enough. Not good enough at all. And looking at some tweets in general in regard to this, Inky Ink says the full clip of Johnny Glynn choking incident. Notice the marks visible on the neck. At what point does it pass Saul territory? The amount of force he's applying to his neck is terrifying. Have people not learned from the George Floyd thing, not to do this? And yeah, it's actually very distressing to watch, because you can clearly see the opposing player who is being choked. You can see him tapping and being like, yo, like, this is not cool. Do you know what I mean? And this is not like, I'm in trouble here. You can see him kind of, and even when he lets go, he's like, I can breathe again. And to have that happen to you on a GA pitch is terrifying. And who knows, obviously people jumped in the way there and stopped it. What if the other players didn't jump in and stop it? It's not good at all. It's not good at all. Kevin Barra says here, Johnny Glynn, what a tramp, but the GA will brush it under the carpet. Assaults of GA getting far too common, and guilty parties getting off in more cases than not. Wake up, GA, before it goes too far. The lad could have died. or been left injured for life. Absolutely. And like, you never know as well with people's personal conditions and everything else. You're stopping a man from breathing for quite a while there, and pressing down on his neck. You just never know what could have happened. And look, as I said before, I believe in second chances. I believe in rehabilitation, and I think for someone like Johnny Glynn, who it is uncharacteristic. We've never seen this from him before. It's not like he's just burst on the scene. He's a young player, and this has just happened. Like, he's been around. He's one of the most experienced hurlers out there, from playing with Galway down the years. So you just wonder how, what's happened there. Someone maybe needs to speak to him and say, well, what's going on? Why did this happen? And maybe then we might get more answers. But yeah, in terms of the GAA brushing under the carpet, it does seem to be a common thing. With a lot of these incidences that are happening a lot of the time, we're not addressing them. We're not looking at the root cause, and there's not enough journalists are asking the question. There's not enough articles out there, and it is worrying, because unfortunately something really bad is probably going to happen, and then the penny's going to drop. They need to intervene before it gets too late. Inky Ink also says Johnny Glynn has just tried to murder someone and gotten a yellow card. I'm not even being hyperbolic. Even just reading that, it's just, it's crazy. Louis Diaz Stan account says some absolutely wild takes on the Johnny Glynn assault of his opponent. He's not a dirty player, apparently. People who think strangling someone on the ground have never played sports. Inverted commas, apparently. Jesus, would you be well with some of the gobshites on here? Yeah, I've seen that as well. I've seen some people say, oh, it's a contact sport, it's a physical sport, it's a man's game. The usual absolute BS that comes out when all these things happen. When there's fights on the sidelines, loads of things happening. You've got all these people coming out saying, oh, well, it's a man's game, it's a man's sport, it's this, it's that. I mean, like, come on, like, do you know what I mean? Like, there's a line. There is a line. And as I said before, one of the opposing players had to drag Johnny Glynn off him. If that opposing player didn't get there, you're talking, 5 more 6 seconds. You're talking milliseconds, a couple more seconds there, and that opposing player could have been in so much trouble. You just don't know. You don't know. So, I think the people who are coming out and saying it's a physical sport, we agree it is a physical sport. It should be a physical sport. There should be hits. There should be challenges. There should be aggression. Obviously, we don't want to get rid of that. But that's drawing the line. Like that, as I said, it is assault, and I think some people are crazy. And this was one of the tweets I've seen, actually. I suppose we'll read this one first from Connor, who says, absolutely disgusting behavior from Johnny Glynn. Choked the opposition player while he had him pinned to the ground. Disgusting to watch. And Jason O'Neill says, what Johnny Glynn did was not good, but people calling for him to be jailed and banned for life. Clearly, you've never played sport. Such scour talk. And see, this is the problem. You do get people like this with these kind of tweets, who are saying, people who've clearly never played the sport or whatever. To be honest with you, what I would say is that you don't even need to have played the sport to know that is not right. Do you know what I mean? I've even had some people who don't even follow GA who've showed me this and be like, is that normal? That can't be right. Do you know what I mean? No. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, not taking that whatsoever. Even if you haven't played the sport, like, that is too far. Like, choking someone in any, unless it is mixed martial arts and there's referees and everything, and it's, a sport or whatever, and it's managed, and okay, fair enough. But obviously, even in those circumstances, when you tap, that's when obviously, the other person lets go. The referee will intervene. There's all sorts of procedures in place for that. So when you're seeing that on a football pitch, in daily life, on the field, crazy. And if you actually think it's scour talk or whatever, I think it says more about that, as you as a person. And I think maybe we should actually be, do you know what I mean, checking your hard drive. Just make sure there's nothing going on there. Do you know what I mean? Look, should he be jailed and banned for life? As again, I believe in second chances. When the whole Tiernan Kelly thing happened with Armagh, I said, look, there has to be second chance. People make big mistakes, and this was a very, and I think this was probably the worst I've ever seen, to be honest with you, because you can talk about it just a rage moment or whatever, but this looked very calculated. Do you know what I mean? He's a lot of time, about 10-15 seconds goes by of him choking him on the ground. So do you know what I mean? He had time there to think, yeah, this is probably not right, and he still kept going. So yeah, like look, ban for life I think would be very far, but I do think, look, 2 to 3 year ban, 1 year ban, like the GA need to really stamp their authority on this, because if they don't, and to be honest with you, even if he did get banned for life, do you know what it is? You would look at it and think, well, you cannot do that. You cannot do that. So yeah, look, jailed, I don't know. It obviously depends on, there's a lot obviously that goes into that, but yeah, crazy stuff. And as I said, I wasn't sure whether to mention it today. I didn't want to go down, a bad no for the first sort of real club championship. Obviously, I've made a few club championship videos predicting club championships and everything else, but in terms of a review or show or whatever, I didn't want to discuss this, but I could not discuss it. I could not discuss it. And from the absolute brilliance of club championships and David Clifford to this, just not what we want to see. But let me know in the comments down below, what were your thoughts on this, and what needs to happen, because something needs to happen. Something needs to happen about this, in my opinion. And what we're looking at here is an absolutely remarkable goal from Ballygunner. I suppose we'll end it on a positive note. And when you look at this no-look pass that's coming up here from Desi Hutchinson, it's coming up right. I mean, absolutely gorgeous stuff there from Desi Hutchinson. And Ballygunner, as we know, bidding for 10 Waterford Senior Hurling Championships in a row. And for me, this was the goal of the weekend, one of the moments of the weekend. I mean, just the absolute play, going back from the start all the way to the finish, the interchange, the link-up play, the swift movements. I mean, Four Water, are at absolute sea here, to be fair, and Ballygunner are just toying with them, from right to left, but an extraordinary finish. That very much wraps up some club championship talk. Let me know what club championships you'll be watching this week. Definitely things starting to heat up in Dublin, in both hurling and football. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens over the next couple of weeks. And yeah, very interested to hear your take, obviously, on David Clifford's brilliance, the horrendous scenes that happened in Galway, and even that goal and Ballygunner. Can they be stopped? Probably not. But yeah, leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll chat to you all later.